I'm not going to follow that part of the instructions. Finally, I got smart and decided, you know what, let's just run a tape measure. I'm not sure what to think about that. And once again, we did not get there. This is crazy. This has been 6 weeks, I think. Here we go. All the supports are finally in. It's another weekend right now. I was able to get all but one of the supports in during the week after work. Just got this last one up. And now the next things the instructions say to do is to pour the concrete over these footings here. I'm not going to follow that part of the instructions. Instead, I'm going to do the pressure plates now. And the reason I'm going to do that first is because the pressure plates have to screw in right here in the end, and then in the end of that one, and that one, and that one. So if this isn't completely square this way, if it has to move a 1/4 inch that way so the screws line up, then with the footings poured, that's going to make that really hard to do. So I'm not sure why the instructions say to do it now, but I'm going to wait. We're going to do the pressure pads first. So in order to do that, I now have to excavate all of this ground here out to 24 inches past on either side, down even with the level of this. So this is now maybe 1.5 inches below where our pool is going to end up. So we have to dig that out. Okay, I've got this all dug out, ready for the pressure pads to go in. So the instructions say to start from left to right from the outside of the pool. So I guess we'll start here and work our way over. Man, that's tough digging though. This is all really hard clay. You can see here, this is all just very hard clay. I couldn't even scrape any off with the flat shovel. I had to use the spade. Okay, one set of pressure pads installed, and I got to say I'm very happy that I did not put the concrete in before doing this. There was a lot of little adjustments that had to be made that would be really tough if those were cemented in. So over on this side, I'm dug out and ready to go, but before I start screwing anything in, I decided to just give myself a quick layout. So I grabbed the pads that go on the end and just kind of roughly lined up all the holes where they connect in the middle. And so you can see down that it's a pretty straight line, but the supports start to stick out at each end there as it goes down. So it makes it pretty obvious that this first one here is not square. And so we can make an adjustment now before anything gets screwed in. This side has been a lot more of a challenge to square up. I thought I could just adjust one and it would be good. That's kind of what it seemed like at first, but it was not going well. I adjusted one and then another it just didn't make any sense. So then I started putting the square along the side of the support to reference along the string, but that wasn't working. That was making me more confused. And then I kind of got to looking at the sides here, and I think this is just not a good flat reference to go off of. So didn't do that. And then finally I got smart and decided, you know what, let's just run a tape measure across because it should be the same distance between them as it is in the back as it is in the front. So did that, made some adjustments, and now let's try it again. Well, this is all we got done yesterday. Got both pressure pads in. So invited some people over today. We're going to really push through. It's Sunday, so tomorrow's another work week. And it's going to rain all week again, so going to really push to try to get all the walls up today. Getting these pads in really fought me. It was helpful to lay them out first, like I said, but now that they're all installed, it's probably hard to see on camera, but looking down this line, these used to be perfectly in line, and now that the pads are in place and they're screwed into where they need to be screwed into, they're kind of out of whack. And I might go back and play with that a little bit, but I'm not sure what to think about that. First thing I'm going to do, hopefully before anybody gets here, so I don't waste time doing it, is I got to get all of these level this way, back and forth this way, and figure out a way to make them stay that way while we pour the footings. So like you can see, this one is pretty much there, but it could be a little better. That's one of the better ones. So I'm thinking I'll just cut a piece of wood and drop it in here, and then in each of them, and then run a long piece of wood across all of them and just level it, screw it down, and then pour the footings, and then we can pull that off. Well, it's the end of another weekend, and once again, we did not get there. Man, you know, I have plenty of experience doing projects like this, and I know firsthand that things always take way longer than you expect. But this one, I mean, I budgeted more time than I thought we had, than I thought we needed. But this is crazy. This has been 6 weeks, I think, since we started tearing out the old one. Yeah, 6 weekends, I should say. But it's going to be at least one more, and it's going to rain a lot this next week, so that might be another challenge to deal with. But we did make progress today. We've got all these pads in place on this side and started leveling out the ground on this side. Footings are poured, so I think we're in good shape. One thing, you see this block on here. I have that there because once the pressure pad got screwed on here, that must have sucked the support down a little bit underneath the pad. For whatever reason, back there it rose up off the block just slightly, just, you know, a 1/16 of an inch, enough that I could push on this and I could feel it tapping. So I put some weight on there to make sure that it's solid against that block. And this one over here did the same thing. So anyway, I'm really confident about the position of all that and what the end result is going to be. Everything is coming together. Well, here we are again. Had another big storm last night, and now we got to deal with a lake again. So awesome. But we're not going to tackle it the same way. See, I've got this problem where if I can accomplish something just by spending my own time on it, I'll do it instead of spending money on it. But in this case, I can't bring myself to imagine doing this all over again. And my brother-in-law was nice enough to send me a link to this transfer pump. All right, I think I've got the instructions down on this thing. First, it needs to be oiled, and yes, it literally says to put a tablespoon of vegetable oil in there, so just drop a little in. This hose it comes with is reinforced, and this has to be on the inlet side of it. Must be a reinforced hose. This little thing on the end here, this is optional, but this is, they call this a puddle sucker or something. I don't know. If you're getting water out of your basement, you could set this right on the floor. I'm going to use it because I think it'll be helpful just to weight it down. But I'm going to stick it in here so that we don't suck up a whole bunch of sand. Okay, so now it says to prime it, you just pour water in this end before you hook up the other side of it. So well, that pump was an excellent investment. I hate spending money, but this was a good one. Really saved us a lot of time, and I think it might have bought us just enough that we can get this done this weekend. So last night after work, I got all of these pavers in place and leveled out to pretty much where they need to be. So now today we can work on getting all the rest of this area all dug down to just below that point of the paver so that we can build it back up with sand. So today I'm going to start with double checking where the placement and levelness of all of those pavers. And then once that's good, I'm going to start moving this big pile of sand over there and kind of start the process of getting it all smoothed out. Not going to go crazy until the wall is up, and just before we put in the liner. But if I can at least get this out of our way so we can keep on with digging this out, that will help. It is going to rain a little tomorrow. Shouldn't be too bad. Should be able to work through it if we need to, but I think we can at least get the wall up today. That should be a good goal, and then we can just focus on getting the bottom all smoothed out for the liner. Here we go. All right, it's the end of the day. I'll give you guys an update. Made some pretty good progress. Sorry I didn't show much of what happened throughout today. We just kind of wanted to work hard and get it done. It's been so long. We're tired of it. We need to get it done. So, pretty good progress though. We got all of the track in place. All the sand is spread out, fairly level. We'll need to, fine tune that once the walls are up. But we got to get these slopes all sloping right. Yeah, a little bit of, there's a few bags of sand left here. We'll dump that in. There's a couple low spots around the shallow end here. We'll smooth that out. But all of that I think can happen after the wall is up. That will be tomorrow. We got some friends coming over. We'll need some help with that. See you then. Okay, today's the day. Ready to make the final push. Got a friend coming over in a little bit, but before he does, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the goal for today. As far as the deep end goes, that's what we kind of have to worry about right now before that's going to be the big thing today, is getting this all smoothed out and in the proper dimensions and things. And the instructions for this pool don't say anything about a deep end. So this has to be, I had to look that up separately. So I'll post a photo of the diagram, the chart that I found. And it is basically, it gives you minimums and maximums for depths and slopes and things like that for your size of pool. And so it doesn't look very specific. It's, like I said, it's minimums and maximums. So I think as long as we're within that, I'm not going to go crazy measuring or anything, but we got to get that sorted out before the liner goes in. So otherwise, I'm just going to put the camera somewhere and just try to record the whole day and us getting stuff done. The wall is up. We are quitting for today, though. This is it. We did not get it done. Did not get the liner in. I feel good, though. We're in a good spot. The sand is pretty well smoothed out. We'll come around with a trowel and just make it as good as we can first. But just a lot of little things that we still need to do yet before the liner goes in. And just to be honest, we're very tired, and we just want to go spend some time with the kids before another work week starts. So that's what we're going to do. Just going to clean up a little bit. I do want to tell you a couple of the problems we ran into today and some tricks that might help out someone else putting this up. So let me climb out of here. Look how much nicer this looks. Man, really does spruce up the yard. Assuming, of course, we can clean up the rest of it sometime. This hasn't been mowed in weeks because we've just been spending all our time getting this pool up. We'll get there, one thing at a time. Okay, so some of the challenges from today. We started with the wall here, which is where we're supposed to. We'll start there, and so the wall, the two seams of the wall come together right behind this. So that's where we started, and then went along. And as you slip the wall into the bottom track, and then put the rails on top, the rails kind of, those are rigid, curved and rigid, so it helps maintain the shape, which helps the whole wall to kind of stay up. But we got a little ahead of ourselves, and as we went down the line, there was no one over here holding the edge, and a bit of wind came through and knocked it down. If you watch the time lapse closely, you would have seen that. But anyway, so that was one thing to be careful of. There's a trick that I learned from taking apart the old pool that I ended up using here. Is I ended up putting a block of wood into here before the railing was on here. I slid a block of wood into here. So I drilled this hole through there, a little self tapper into that piece of wood just to hold it in place while we did the rest of it. So that was there's a hole there now, and I'll probably come back with a file and make sure that there's no sharp edges. But that was a good move. We spent a lot of time trying to get the track to line up just right. Once the wall went in, these footings, they moved all around, and we expected that. But what we didn't expect was, like between this one, there's supposed to be about an inch of that track is supposed to go into either side of that footing. So this track here goes into that about an inch there. On some of them, though, they would collapse all together, and some they would pull apart. And it was just kind of a nightmare to sort out. Thinking that maybe the diameter here was just a little bit bigger than over there, so that's why we were getting some tracks pulling apart, and then trying to shimmy enough of the pool on the other side to try to fix it, and it was just it was a lot. So what I ended up doing is not worry quite so much about side to side, and instead I went ahead and got all these railings on, because those are gonna those bottom plates, those can slide around a little bit, but these top plates are always going to be fixed based on the dimensions of the railings. So what I did is I attached all the railings so that at least the spacing between them would be correct, and then I sighted down the side of this, because this first one that's right off of the big support is straight in line with the rest of it. So I got them all up, and then I just moved things around to make sure that this first one was in a straight line with the rest of it. And then you can literally just go to the rest of them and just kind of shake them a little bit, kind of pick it up, kick it maybe a little bit, and then kind of wherever it lands naturally is more or less where it wants to go. It's going to conform to the shape that it needs to, based on where these top plates landed. So that really helped out. And once I did that, everything more or less fell into place. The list of things we still need to do: we need to fill in some dirt back here, and I want to do that before the liner goes in, so that the liner does not push out of the edge. We still have to put in the Cove padding around the edge that will further help to make sure that the liner can't slip out underneath the wall, especially over here and over there. We really have to build up sand to match the bottom of the wall. Still have to do that. Obviously smooth out the rest of this the best we can. All of these need to pop back off. I put them all back on thinking it was done. You do have to have the railings on before the liner goes in, because the liner will drape over the side, and so you can't have any sharp edges for it to catch on and tear. So this all has to be on, but I jumped the gun and put these on first. There's a bracket that needs to screw in right here. I saw it in the instructions, but it was I didn't quite understand what was happening. There's a bracket that comes out right here, and then it's just a little right angle bracket, and sticks out a little bit, and then there's a bolt that goes through the middle and attaches to that. And what that does is keep this from being able to roll up, which is what it's going to want to do when we attach the liner. You know, the liner gets stretched across the whole thing, clipped onto here, and then we fill it with water. So there is going to be a lot of pressure trying to make this roll into the pool. So I got to get those brackets attached before we do anything, which means all these need to come back off. We'll tackle a lot of those little things on the list throughout this next week, and then next weekend I think we'll be in a really good spot to just put the liner in and fill it up. See you then. Okay, it is the final weekend. Finally. I know I've said that at least 4 weekends in a row, but this one is definitely it. Don't have a whole lot to do yet. Over the course of this last week, I got all the backfill put in. It's not perfect, but it's enough just to kind of support the bottom of the walls as it fills. Let me take you through how I'm getting this Cove stuff in. Now that I've done over half the pool, I think I got it kind of figured out, because it's a little tricky, and I can't really find any instructions on how it goes in. So I ended up having to go with this stuff, which is only, what is that, about 2 inches? 2 inches across, and I think normally you see this about 4 inches. And I did some reading up, and it seems like that's going to be just fine still. But if I had known that I could wait, I would have went with the bigger stuff. But one of the complaints I saw on the reviews was that the peel and stick was not very sticky. But I have not run into that at all. In fact, this stuff is too sticky. I just, this first one here, I accidentally touched it to the side as it was going in and could not get it off. So I got to come back here now and get this last little bit stuck on there. But it's plenty sticky. So let me set the camera down and I will show you how I'm getting these in. Okay, so I start by taking the trowel and just really getting this smooth. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it to be smooth from here to here. I don't care about anything else. That way when I stick this on there, it'll just kind of be more or less level. I'm not worried about it being perfect, but now that that's good, I'll peel this off. Okay. And the spot between these two, I'm sure, is you're going to be able to feel a little divot once the weight of the water is on there. So I start by really trying to force that up against that one, and then I just lay this up against the ground and push it on. Just get it flat to the ground and then push it forward. Good, so it's there. And then you just press up here where the sticky part is, and that'll really get it stuck in. Now you saw when I did that, the bottom rose up. So now there's a gap under that we're going to have to fill. I don't really know how to get around that. I guess I could go in at more of an angle to begin with, but I don't know. That's fine. Okay, so that's really stuck on there now, and I'll just kind of shove some sand under it. If I feel any little hard bit, leaves, seeds, rocks, sticks, while I'm doing this, I'll just grab them and toss them out. So that's filled in-ish under there, and then before we're done, we'll make sure this is built up just over the top of this, so you won't be able to see or feel that. Now the instructions said, when putting up the wall, be very careful not to get any dirt down in this track. Well, I don't know how that is possible. Before we did the wall, we went around with a tiny paintbrush and got every little piece of dirt we could out of there. And then as soon as we started getting the wall in, it was just not possible to keep the dirt out. And even now, as I'm trolling out the sand, you see it's all getting up in there. So I don't know how that's possible to keep dirt out of there, especially on the outside of it where you're backfilling with dirt. I don't know. Maybe it's just a leveling thing to make sure the wall is seated all the way to the bottom of the track. But once that's in, and there's so many ways for dirt to get in there. Anyway, just thought I'd share that little note. Another thing I'm a little concerned about right here
You can see the edge of it. It's really up top here. And the reason I don't think I can do anything about that is because the instructions say to put 3 inches of sand on top of this pressure plate, but that would mean building up the entire pool. To do a little math with me here, the instructions said to level the bottom, level the ground, how to the point where you want the bottom of the pool to be. Then, in putting in these side supports, you mark out how far out the supports are going to come, and you dig out a little trench that's something like 3 inches wide and 3.5 inches deep. The side support itself, the part that sticks out here, is, I don't know, 1.5 inches, probably 2 inches. So now you're only 1.5 inches or so below the level that you want your pool to be. Then you put the pressure plate on top of that. So at that point, you're almost maybe within 1 inch back up to the level that you selected your pool to be. So to go 3 inches more, that would mean building up this entire area 2 more inches, which maybe that's what you're supposed to do, but the instructions did not cover that at all. In fact, the only time they even mentioned sand, they actually say sifted earth. The only time they mention that is when covering these pressure plates or building this cove, if you're using sand for the cove instead of this foam. So I don't know what to think there. If the otherwise the sides would have to be higher up than the rest of the pool. So we'll build this up a little bit because I can't just see that and walk away, but that might be a thing. Now I'm gonna put this foam on the walls. This is supposed to keep the water a little more insulated and hopefully keep it a little warmer. For this, I'll use some double-sided tape, and I think I'll put the seam right here where we're already going to be dealing with these screws and things. I think I'm going to make this overlap the cove just a little bit. Dull knives hurt more people than sharp knives. Remember that as I work with this dull knife. The problem I'm running into is the ground isn't perfectly level, which is okay. The pool, the structure has to be as level as possible. The ground, I think, is less so. But that means where these coves sit isn't always in the same spot. And although I would love for it to overlap that cove a little bit, it's not going to. This carpet tape, though, I like it that I can just pull this off, adjust a little bit, and re-stick. That is nice. These are the little things that there aren't many instructions for. Instructions with the pool are very detailed in some spots. When it comes to the digging for the side supports and all the structural aspects, but these little things, there's not much. So that's why I'm kind of trying to document my experience a little more when it comes to this stuff. Oh, skirt's coming up. Excuse me, miss. Excuse me. There you go.